when I left school, or before I left school, I used to, in Easter time, make kites, fancy kites with all singing bulls and stuff. And I used to market them in school at Combermere, and I used to sell them as parts of the Easter celebration. And what I got as a result from the sales bought me my first bicycle, which was a second-hand bicycle from one of the people in Rawle Street that I used to walk. Having lived my early life in Emerton, it was a natural walk straight out through Emerton, through the St. Mary's Church, James Street, and there was a very interesting corner in James Street. It was made up of what's that street there? Subtle Street, Tudor Street, down into Baxter's Road, and then you turn up by the Methodist Church, James Street Methodist Church. You go up to Roebuck Street. And at Roebuck Street, there was almost a dilemma. I was always amazed every morning walking through there to go to school, because the Combermere I went to was where the transport board is now. So I had to walk through there to get to the school. And I would see in those days, if they had 20 businesses, and they were all food producing businesses with one drugstore, but the food producing businesses were the forerunners to supermarket wholesales. These guys on mornings would have trucks. They would take all the food orders out to the country, because the food was controlled by a select group who would sell to, or they would have themselves, a number of shops all around the country that they would supply on a wholesale basis, rice, flour, whatever. And those businesses eventually became supermarkets. And again, the 1% got control of it, and it didn't trickle down. I had opportunity given to me by the headmaster of Combermere. When I was ready to leave school, he called me up, and he always used to call me by my full name, Rawle Cecil. He said, "Rawle Cecil, I had a call today from Bridgetown. They wanted a salesman to travel the islands." So I said, "Well, to travel the islands, and I've never left Barbados. I've never gone anywhere." He says, "No problem, you'll get to learn it. I'll explain to you what you do, and you can improve on it." And so that I did. I took the job on, and in 2 weeks with the job, I was flying up and down the islands, which was my territory from Jamaica to Trinidad. And this was selling hardware and whatever, because in those days, Barbados was like the real center pin in the Eastern Caribbean. Whatever the islands wanted, they used to buy from Barbados. They had dentists that used to travel back and forth to have, because they had clients all through the islands. And we had a Queen Elizabeth Hospital that was a very important link in the Caribbean, because it was the hospital that islanders would go to for whatever the need was, especially for surgery. So it was very advanced, very organized, and delivered what people were looking for in the Caribbean. That, unfortunately, we've lost. But I gather it's coming back nicely, and soon we will be back there I trust that happens. I then left that company that I was working for and went with another one, because I started at that company where I used to buy mornings little things that my mother used to sell in a little one-door shop, and I would go uptown and buy all her supplies so she wouldn't have to be rushing out, and she wouldn't lose business either, because it wasn't a big business, but it couldn't afford to be without sales. You had to have growing sales rather than dying. And so I would go uptown and buy stuff for her, and she would sell, and in the night, evening time, because shops used to open, those wholesalers would open late at night. But the traders in Roebuck Street, I was amazed, because one important thing is that more than 60% of those businesses in Rawle Street were black businesses, doing the business that only whites were thought to be with the ability to do the business that they were doing, and we were questioned as to whether we thought that we could do this business, because it was a very intricate business. You had to understand it and know it, sure, like every business, but you needed the opportunity to get in. And I went to work with this company, a company called Commodity Marketing. It's a Guyanese company, and I was going to operate from Barbados. And I, without the agreement from my boss, went ahead because I thought it was so right. I thought that I could import from Japan. In those days, Japan was doing what China is doing now, supplying everything. And we went to Japan and bought up a whole lot of fabric, woolen fabric, that you made suits and pants out of. In those days, there was nobody making garments to sell off the peg like we do now. You used to go to a tailor. The tailor would make your pants. You buy 1.5 yards of fabric, and the tailor would make a pants, and the next pants, and the next pants, and the next pants. So I brought this fabric in after having done research up and down Broad Street, Swan Street, that the material looked identical to the best quality English material. So I bought 1 yard and sent it off to Japan for the guys to copy it. That's what Japan was, a big copying organization. And when this fabric came, it was not what we had intended buying. And I went and literally begged all the buyers from the Broad Street store that would normally buy it to help me out and buy this thing, otherwise I'm going to get fired. I mean, I didn't get my boss's approval. I was so certain that this material was right that I went confidently and ordered a whole lot of it. When it came, I was in trouble. All the buyers said, no man, it looks too good to be true. This was the Japanese fabric. And what was his problem at the time is that we had money tied up in the shipment. The boss wanted the money, the thing sold and the money to do something else. So I was in big trouble, didn't have anybody to buy this fabric. And I went to the Costas, and there was a friend of mine who used to play cricket for YMPC at the time. And I told him what my problem was, and he said, man, boy, I would like to help you, but my job will be on the line too, so I can't do too much. But anyway, eventually I took the fabric to a tailor and asked him, look man, make good pants, get one of them, the style pants that we used to get for tourists only. It's called DAKS, D-A-K-S, English brand. The tourists used to come to Barbados only to buy this thing. It used to be made by Selfridges in London. And I made up a sample looking like this, and took it through Broad Street and sold out the whole shipment in half an hour as pants. And of course, that opened up a whole panacea of ideas, because Barbados or the islands did not at the time, Barbados did not at the time have a factory that produced anything near suits or pants. And we also gave birth at the same time to the shirt jacket, made from this English material, but in the shirt jacket style. So it replaced the tie and the regular jacket and started a whole new look in Barbados here and through the islands, because as I was doing the job through the islands, I tacked that on in the suitcase and showed it when I went through, and some did start there as well. But that was a fantastic achievement for us. I mean, we didn't have anything in our wildest dreams to suggest that this is the way it was going to go. But again, if your eyes are open to opportunity, these things are going to happen. Something out of the blue is going to turn up. That means that you can develop business. And as my son didn't quite understand, all doesn't work. Everything doesn't work. But you can't close your eyes to opportunity. You got to check it out, do your homework, do the sums, and see whether it is not good for you. If it is not good for you, dump it. But don't leave it and miss the boat because you were sleeping. So that was one area outside of norm that I got involved in. Then after a little while, I thought that it was nonsense working for somebody, because now I had all the knowledge, was doing all the new things in the company. And I decided that it was time to go. So I looked around and checked a few things. Where was the business going to come from on a continuous basis, you know? And the indication was that business was there. You're going to have to work hard as hell to get it, because there's a lot of entrenchment. The people who've been doing the same thing for years and years and years, and friendships, and you know, a little bit of nepotism here and there and there, and you know, all the difficulties kicked in, because I was in, we must call it what, unfamiliar territory, or in an era or area where people like myself have never been exposed to. So everybody, Brancker selling fabric, because of course the word moves quickly, because you're talking money and the fellas losing money because they ain't got the right thing to sell. So it developed from there and developed to several things. And we had, West Indies was doing very well at the time. And West Indies was so strong that I was, in 1966, I was appointed, I was included in the West Indies team that went to England. And I never played a test match. The team was too strong. I had made 5 consecutive centuries and couldn't get in the rest of the team because nobody failed. Nobody used to fail. The team was too strong.
Catch your fire, you're gonna